briefly go through some of these. Inability to attract recent immigrants. And immigrants happen to be a key factor in economic development. And again, that's a whole literature. There are books and articles written about just that. It's a growing field. Why do we need immigration? Not just the highly educated immigrants, but even those who are not educated very highly at first come with a certain amount of drive and verve and vigor and the ability to essentially raise themselves and their families over a certain number of years. So there's a certain amount of energy that you get from immigration. But you can't attract them if you don't have a place that is feasible. So you'll find that some states attract immigrants better than others. Some states, for example, Washington and Illinois have done a better job at this than Michigan. I wanted to show you just an example of this. This is from Chicago, and it's basically just census data that looks from 1980 to 2006. And of course, Chicago is known as one of those few cities that did not actually lose population between 1990 and 2000. They actually stayed pretty close to 3 million people, but what people don't realize is that one of the reasons they did that was because of the Hispanic influence. That the black population dropped, the white population dropped, but the Hispanic population did not. And here's an example of immigration essentially raising up a city's numbers so that they have people to replace the people that are leaving. Here's another implication of underdevelopment. Constantly increasing development of land, of urban land, and the cost of infrastructure improvement on the fringes. And I alluded to this before. If you continue to build out, somebody's got to pay for the roads, the sewers, the whole tamale, has to be paid for by someone. And essentially, this is investment dollars. It's from the public sector that is not bottomless, as we are finding out in this economic recession. And I have some slides that show this from Southeast Michigan. We happen to have good data from Southeast Michigan, in part because of SEMCOG, Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. And this shows kind of the change in developed land from 1990 to 2000. Developed land increased by 17.7%. So we're gobbling up land in Southeast Michigan, but the population only increased by 5%. So we're using land up really out of proportion to the population increase, which is not always true in the rest of the world. We just assume that we can continue to go out and constantly use land up. This is another SEMCOG map. This is an older map. This is from 1995, but it showed their projection of those 7 counties. And the red is essentially what the urbanized land was in 1965. The yellow, they were projecting for 2020. And I'm sorry, 1995 is the yellow, and then 2020 is the blue. And this is their latest map. This is so they haven't really updated this all the time. But this one is the most recent one they've published, which shows they're pretty much on target in terms of this land that's being used up. And of course, the land that is being used up is probably agricultural land, is wild, it's forest land. So a lot of other things are being sacrificed for the sake of this constant urbanization sprawling. And I also want to just show as well, if you look at some of the cities, you look at cities around Michigan, there's several that are listed here. Ann Arbor, Detroit, Kalamazoo, Muskegon are a few, but also Warren, Saginaw. Basically, the yellow line is the drop in population from 2000 to 2005, and this is the latest data that I have available. And the red is the population increase at the county level. So you can see that this land use pattern is really all over the state. Basically, specific cities are losing, central cities are losing their population, and the counties are gaining population. And that has all kinds of implications.
Excuse me.
Yes.
On that last slide, what are
yes.
What are the 2 cities near the bottom that you're
Wyoming and Warren. So that leads to fiscal crisis. Just as an example, roads. And these are slides I actually don't tell them, but I pilfered from MMDOT. They were on the web, so I figured, you know. But this is a slide from a presentation that I found on the web from MDOT that basically was a clarion call. It was from 2009, and they're showing the declines in revenue and the loss in federal funds because they just don't have the money to essentially match. And so we're losing matching funds because we're losing revenue. So, and why do we need so much money for roads? Well, in part because of all the growth and the sprawl that I've just described. And this basically, that's not, I didn't do that, they did that, MDOT did that. That's money, they're saying the money is coming now, but it's not going to come anymore. And of course, that's before the, basically some of the, oh, let's leave that one, that was, yeah. Another example, fiscal crisis for diverse municipalities, and this is from Orfield's work, which essentially shows that yes, indeed, there are a lot of, this is Southeast Michigan, but he has them for all the major metro areas in the state. That basically it's true that tax values are low, the tax base is low, but the red means that a lot of other places are in crisis as well. They're losing, because you can't continue as a society to pay for all of this. If you're going to constantly abandon water mains, if you're going to constantly have to build new water mains, it eventually catches up with you. I mean, someone has to pay, and the public is paying. And then, of course, debilitating inequities, abandonment, and decay. And this is a building inside of Detroit, an abandoned building, where trees are growing. So just very briefly, I just wanted to just talk a little bit about policy responses that we've made. We've had several efforts dating back to 1977 and Bill Milligan's administration. We've had some efforts, 1990 was under Terry DuVernay at MISHDA. But the most recent effort was really the Michigan Land Use Leadership Council, of course. And I'm just, as I end, I'd just like to talk a little bit about, maybe I'll skip this, and just talk a little bit about what we know needs to happen in terms of cities. And Myron Orfield and Jennifer Vey, who's with Brookings, suggest that we need tax reform, regional land use planning, partnerships, and human investment. Richard Florida, the Creative Class City, says we need creative class, young people, creative activities. And by the way, there are a lot of difficulties with that particular theory. But let's, for the moment, put that up there. And then a land use approach is we need essentially urban containment or smart growth. 2003, the Michigan Land Use Leadership Council suggested that we look at 4 areas: urban revitalization, land-based industries, planning and development, and infrastructure and community services. And just for urban revitalization, I just put up a list of the various suggestions they made in terms of changes we needed to make in Michigan, in terms of putting public offices in urbanized areas, reusing brownfields, et cetera. And a lot of those have been done. We did essentially carry out a number of the recommendations from that particular task force. These are the other ones that have been fully done for the urban revitalization area. But in general, of the recommendations from that task force, we've only fully implemented 22 out of many more. 39 partially, 3 in progress, and 149 not addressed at all. And this is as of 2009. So, Michigan's record, we're not doing the things that the major advisors would say, the major scholars would say need to be done in order to create urban revitalization, either by the Orfield-Vey approach, somewhat the creative class approach, but that's again kind of a suspect theory. The land use approach, we're definitely not doing that. I just showed you the results of that. So cities are important, but many of our cities are still in trouble, and we're not addressing